Alrighty, guys. In today's presentation, we're going to be going over macronutrients. Now, macronutrients or macros are the three essential nutrients that our body needs to function at its best, and two out of three are necessary for us to stay alive. It's really important that you know what they are because everything we eat contains a different amount of macronutrients, and this is where we get all our calories from. So, the three macronutrients are carbs, fats, and protein. Sugar and fiber are considered a carbohydrate, so they actually fall under that category of carbs, and a lot of people don't realize this. So, sugar and fiber are also carbohydrates. And then we have a fourth macronutrient, which is considered a non-essential macro. We don't really need to worry about this, but I will tell you, and it's alcohol. Alcohol contains 7 calories per gram. Again, this is kind of irrelevant, but yeah, alcohol has a lot of calories. We'll talk about that in another slide. In another presentation. Now, carbohydrates, they are our body's primary source of fuel, which is why it really bothers me when people say, or people make claims that carbohydrates are bad for you and that you need to cut them out of your diet. I think it's really stupid. But anyway, when we consume carbohydrates, they get broken down into glucose, which is used for immediate energy. And if we don't use that energy up straight away, then it gets stored away in our muscles, which is great for weight training. And it gets stored away in our liver for later use. Now, common sources of carbohydrates are fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, dairy products, sweets. There's a lot of different things that contain carbs. Now, the different types of carbohydrates, this is important to know, right? You got two types. You got simple carbs and you got complex carbs. And another way we can look at it too that you might have heard of is the GI index, right? You've got low GI and you've got high GI. Now, simple carbs, they are carbohydrates that provide you with really quick energy. So usually they are, sugary, things that have a lot of sugar in them. And the best way you can think about it is, right, on one end of the spectrum, you've got pure sugar. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got carbs that are complex, that take a long time for our body to break down. And because of that, we get a more sustained release of energy, right? And the reason why it takes longer for these carbs to break down is because they're full of starches and fiber. And that, I think about it this way: sugar, immediate dump of energy, which then can sometimes result in a sugar low. This is usually more so when you have candy and shit like that. And then when you've got complex carbs, which have a lot more fiber, because they get broken down slower, that all those carbs get released into the bloodstream over a longer period of time. And like I mentioned, it gives you a more sustained drip of energy throughout the day. Now, having sufficient amount of carbs during your fat loss journey is important to stay, because it helps you stay energized, and it also is going to make your workouts a whole lot better. Now, we have proteins. They are essential for keeping us alive. They are the building blocks of the body. They are essential to repair pretty much everything in your body that's damaged, and helps us build muscle, recover from weight training, and also helps us with our immune system. Now, different sources of protein, meat, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy, beans, legumes, nuts, seeds, and tofu, right? And just like carbs, there's different types of protein. So you have two types. One is complete and one is incomplete. Now, complete proteins contain all essential amino acids. You don't really know what you don't really need to know what that is or what that means, but complete proteins are going to be where you want to get most of your protein from. And they come complete proteins sources. Complete protein sources come from meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. And then incomplete protein sources, which lack some of the essential amino acids, come from plant-based things like beans and nuts. You might have heard like people use peanut butter to get protein, but actually peanut butter is a really poor source of protein and it's also incomplete. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't have those incomplete sources, but majority of your diet should come from complete sources. Now, having sufficient amount of protein is important to maintain muscle mass whilst you're in a calorie deficit. If you're not getting enough protein, then a large amount of the weight that you lose can actually come from muscle. And then because you lose muscle, your metabolism gets slowed down. So we don't want that. To prevent that, you want to get sufficient amount of protein, and you also ideally want to be doing some kind of weight training or resistance training. But we'll talk about that in a different presentation. Also, it is really important for keeping us full. Protein is the most it's the most satiating out of all the macros, so it's the one that's going to fill you up the most. And also, I haven't put it on this slide, but it has the highest thermic effect of food. And essentially, this means that a certain percentage of the calories that you get from protein gets lost in the digestion process, which is great. Which means, say you get 300 calories from a piece of chicken, up to 30% of those calories may not even up to 30% of those calories will get utilized processing the meat itself and will get lost in the digestion process. So that in a way, they kind of don't count. But again, you don't really need to know that. It's just cool. It's just a cool fact. And another reason why you want to emphasize high protein. By the way, we will also touch on protein in a separate presentation. And then we have fats, right? Or dietary fats. They provide a concentrated source of energy, which we tend to use fats in exercise also, but carbohydrates are usually our preferred source of energy. They also help absorb vitamins, and they help support cell growth, protect your organs with cushioning, and help produce hormones. So for men, it's the testosterone. For the women, it's more so the estrogen. But we have both of those hormones, just in different amounts. And the different sources of fats come from things like oils, butter, nuts, seeds, avocados, fatty fish, dairy products, and there are other sources too. Like carbs and protein, there are different types. So you have unsaturated fats, which are considered the healthy ones because they can improve your heart health, improve your cholesterol, right? And these come from like olive oil, nuts, avocado, can be like salmon. And then you've got saturated fats, which are found in animal products and also other types of oils. And they are okay, but they should only be consumed in moderation. And like big examples of saturated fat are butter and red meat. But also saying that if you get lean cuts of red meat, then it's not necessarily a big concern. It's only when you get in the fatty cuts of meat, right? And then we have the worst type of fats, trans fats, which are artificially made. They're found in processed foods and they should be avoided. right? I think in Australia, we don't really have trans fats anymore. I think they've all been banned, but in other countries like America, there's a good chance. I don't know if this has changed now, but I think they're more common. And the reason why you want to have sufficient amount of fats during your weight loss journey is because it's really important just for keeping your body running healthy and efficiently. Now, like I said earlier in the presentation, it's important to know this stuff, right? Because each macronutrient contains a certain amount of calories, and this is where our total calorie intake for the day comes from, right? So for every 1 gram of carbohydrate, you get 4 calories. For every 1 gram of fats, you get 9 calories. And for every 1 gram of protein, you also get 4 calories. So have a quick look, have a proper look at this. And this is most relevant when you're looking at a food label, right? So for example, we have on the food label, this is an Australian food label. We have 2 columns. You got per serve, and then you have a look. 1 serve is 1 unit, so this whole thing is 1 serve. Anyway, you have the kilojoules. We tend to use kilojoules more here in Australia. Not sure what it's like in the rest of the world, but regardless, when I am talking about all this kind of stuff, I'm always going to refer to calories. Now, so you got 95 calories, and the way that number there, the 95 calories, is determined is by adding all the macros together, and you get that total number. So to explain what I mean, right, going back to what I said, 1 gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories. So if we look down here, this yogurt has 6 grams of carbohydrates, right, total. And 5 of those grams are from sugar. But so what you would do, the amount of calories coming from carbs, you would do 6, right? There's 6 grams of carbohydrates. So it's 6 times 4, right? And then the amount of calories coming from fats, you would go 0.8 times 9, right? Because again, 9 calories per gram, and there's not even 1 gram in this yogurt. And then the protein, it would be 15 times 4, right? And once you've done all of that, you would get the total value. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too confusing. We will touch on food labels in another presentation. But yeah, to summarize what I was just on about, the total amount of calories is determined by the amount of each macronutrient. I guess that's really all you need to know. Now, as we get deeper into the coaching process, we'll start looking at how much of each macro you should be aiming for. But for now, it's just good that you know what they are and why they're important. In future presentations, we'll touch on so many other things, but that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Take it easy, lemon squeezy.